Hello, and today we're going to be doing TV-like graphics for GIMP and OBS. You could also do these in other stuff like Affinity or Adobe, um, but I prefer to use GIMP not only because it's free, but also because it's not absolute garbage. So usually a rule of thumb I usually try to stick by is most YouTube um, broadcasts, live streams, videos are going to be going by a simple ratio. That's probably going to be 1920 by 1080, so you're going to probably want to start off with a document like that. Definitely on landscape. The DPI don't matter too much for this. You can just keep your background. This is on the current version of GIMP as of January 2026. This will probably all still be relevant in coming years, so if you're watching this in like, I don't know, 2035 or whatever, or 2030, this will probably still be hopefully somewhat relevant. And for all you people out there who are good people that don't like using AI. So one thing I like to do here is GIMP has this thing where you can add guides. So if you go down to image, go to the guides, go to new guide by percent, you can kind of put some guides in that way. You don't want your graphics extending all the way to the screen. So you kind of want to have it not quite there. So let's try 10. I think that's a bit low. So we're going to do 5 pixels away from the left edge. Then we're going to do 95% after doing 5%. And that will be 5 pixels. Or not 5 pixels, but 5% on each set. Crap, I just did the same thing. It'll be 5% on each side. So you just put 95, not 15, 95, not 15, 95. I've been wasting your time there. And that should kind of give you some borders there to work with. And go ahead and do the top. Now, you definitely don't want to extending it all the way to the top. Now, if you're doing like a scrolling ticker on the top, it could work if you just cover the entire top. But you definitely still want to have a limit on where that goes. Next, you're going to do a horizontal. And for the bottom, for sure, you're probably going to want to do, again, 5%. Oh, well, that's the top. Well, 95% for the bottom. And that will put you it's kind of like a bleed in a sense of your broadcast, because it just looks a bit more professional in my opinion if it just went around this area. Now you can add more guides as you go along, but this is how I'm doing it for now. Alright, and I've loaded in this image here, and the reason why is, I have another one behind it, but the reason why I'm doing this kind of gives me an idea of how it would look on YouTube or wherever you're broadcasting, as this kind of gives you the idea. So you have a few options here. You could do a full lower third. You could do a lower third within consideration of, maybe a pylon ticker here on the side, maybe. It really all depends on your movement. So let's say, for example, you want to do a pylon ticker. You have your guide here at that. I usually like to trace tickers in to OBS that way, or not OBS, but in GIMP. And you can completely do original ones as well. I just find it a bit more easier and works better with my time sometimes to just find a good ticker, trace it, add a little bit more originality to it. That way it's not entirely just ripped. And let me go ahead and find an image here to trace. Alright, so I'm going to trace the WEC ticker here. Blow it up. Doesn't quite fit the page. That's okay. So just scrolled up to the height. It doesn't have to be on par with that entirely, but it does look better if it is. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit, kind of to the edge, and I'm just going to work with that. Also going to lower the opacity of this, where I can kind of still see it enough to where I could trace on it. And we'll get rid of that background image for now. So for this, I'm going to use my selection tool. Now you can see it kind of goes past the guides. This is more so of just, it's suggestive. You don't have to use that limit. You could go, 2.5%, which is probably what they ended up doing here, which granted, they probably have their own measuring system. But for this, just simply get a selection tool here, and then we'll go around this. Kind of extend a little bit to the edge, and then I'll add a new layer, and then I will fill that up for now. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a gradient like they did. I like that. I will do a darkish blue, just be kind of original. Fill that in. I'll lower the opacity, that way you can still kind of see the ticker as a guide. I'm actually going to make a group here, so that way I can put this together one by one. You can just hit that new group button, put that group in, and that does that. Next, you see how it has those rounded corners? Now Gimp, I don't remember if this is an add-on or not. If it is, shoot. But Gimp has a rectangle selection, so I could do rectangle selection, or not, rounded edges on the selection, and then just erase that. I don't like doing that because usually when I use the eraser tool, it kind of makes the edge a little bit more pixelated. So rather what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new layer, and now I'm going to go to select rounded rectangle, and I'm kind of just going to find a percent that works. The radius is probably not going to be on par, but find a radius you want to work with. Find something you can get behind. So 35 is a bit much, so we're going to hit Control Z, undo that. I'm going to try, we're going to try like 15. Still a bit, but honestly, you see down here, it's actually perfect. So we'll work with that, and then I'm just going to fill that in with blue. I can just click and drag from that little selection color, or the color panel over here. You can just drag it onto the selection, and it'll change the color of that. I'm going to lower the opacity of this. Now here is how I connect the two. This bottom layer here, you can kind of see, that is the full rectangle. So I'm just going to hit a selection, and I'm going to delete the part that's still overlapping on this end, and that completely deletes it. I'm going to select none, and I'm going to just turn both the opacity up on both of these, just so you can get an idea. Turn off both that. You can kind of see pretty good thing there. So that's the way I like doing it. If you want to do it the hard way and just, or the easy way and just cut off the edges, you can. But I think it just looks more choppy doing that, so I just do it like this. So now, gotta turn that back on. So now we have this. So I can actually merge those now since we don't need to mess with that. So just hit merge down on top of it. They're on the same layer. If you want, you can hit layer to crop layer to content. I don't like doing that because I'm not done, first of all. But when you're done with the ticker, if you keep it as this ratio, you can just slap it into OBS as a new image and it'd be perfectly fine without you having to scale or anything. The only problem is the file size is going to be a bit bigger. So if you're worried about storage, you may want to scale it down and have to do all the dirty work and trying to move it around to OBS, which I don't enjoy doing. Now, obviously, you don't have to do this part. This is just kind of suggestive. And heck, you could do black. Now, I will say a color that works well for tickers. Doing a full black isn't exactly the best way of going about it, in my opinion, but a very close to it, like 000A for just an example, pretty good. Maybe go darker than that, like 0005, or you see that right there. Like putting that in, that could work perfectly fine if you want to just do a simple ticker. Rounded rectangle, heck, you could do the whole thing as a rounded rectangle if you want. It all comes up to just how you want it. That is the name of the game. But for this, I'm just going to trace it, give you all an idea of what you could do and how to do it, and kind of how you can just kind of be creative with how you go about making this. So I'm going to go ahead, move it up a little bit, just for, getting it as close as I can. And now I'm going to do alpha to selection, and I'm going to try to get that little gradient up there. And I'm going to do a little bit lighter blue. I'm just going to move it up a little bit here, move this up, not too much. You can kind of see the old color versus the new. I like this, so I'm going to make another new layer. This one's going to be full. And this one, I'm gonna just do custom, that way it doesn't have any other color to it. And it kind of looks like a circular gradient there, so I'm just gonna do radial here. And it doesn't look like it came out the way I wanted, but kind of, get it where you want it. It all comes down to the way you want to stylize your ticker. It all comes down to creativity. That's pretty close, so I'm gonna leave it like that. Raise the opacity of this. Then just down. Plenty fine to me. Granted, you don't have to merge these down, but that's the way I'm doing it, just to kind of keep it. That way I don't have so many layers, I'm going to confuse myself. And down this bottom part, you could just really easily trace these things again. Like, if you wanted to, you just hit alpha to selection, and then, like, make a new layer, make that bottom part red. It just really comes down to how creative you want to be with your ticker. And at the end of this, I'll show you all how to put this all into OBS, and I'll just line it up with that. And heck, you could add another border if you know how to do alpha to selection, do like path, stroke. It all comes down to creativity, really. Let's see, that's rounded rectangle. Yeah, there's that. Then we just make a new layer, put in red, like none. Full opacity, we'll just turn that off. Actually, we'll turn that back on, that way I can see what I don't want. And then kind of cut off from there. And I think that'll be right on par. Yeah, pretty close. I mean, you could also like just kind of do it like this. You want to keep the borders, and then that'll keep the borders on there. It's up to you how much precise you want to be with that. But that's kind of the gist on that for the most part. They usually have a bit more stuff to it. I mean, you can trace it with paths too. It's just basically figuring out how you want to do it. Just being open to not being closed-minded when making your stuff. And you just kind of gotta, have a little bit of know-how of Gimp, a little bit of being comfortable with it. Now here I'm making guides, that way I can kind of line my stuff up. You see how they have all that lined up? And guides can be pretty helpful. So I recommend using those. You don't have to keep them all the way through your work, and if you ever need to hide them, you just go to View, and then you could just hit Show Guides, and that turns them off. And you can just go back, turn them on, and it's all good. And if you ever need to get rid of one, that's grid. I don't want grid. Grid could work too, but that's a bit much. I don't know. Up to you. But yeah, say we just want to do that. Scroll in, and we'll just get that. I don't line it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I think it's going to probably be off by a good bit. But yeah, you kind of get the gist, and you can do like a stroke or whatever you feel like putting together. But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. And then, am I going to be good to call that final product? Well, we'll do that for now. But yeah, if you wanted to keep it simple, say you like wanted to put in like what they had here with the gray, and we'll probably do that. See how they don't have it all the way around, which I probably won't do either, just to keep it interesting. Then move that up a couple pixels. It's not isolated. That looks good. Do that gray I was talking about. 5. Drop it in. Call it good. Now here, I would honestly put your logo in here as well. So, like, if you're like, wherever there's a logo, you can put the logo there. You can put the time there. The time you'd probably put in through OBS. It's all about lining that up. And then for the session, you could always put in different box. You could do the same thing with how you did the original ticker layout. But for the time being, I think I'm pretty happy with how this would look as a ticker to show you all as an example here in a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and move over to doing lower thirds. Once you save that, go ahead and put it in. I'm going to save it as an example in here. I already did that. Basically, make sure you have it all right. I could crop it, but I don't want to because that is a pain in the rear to get it figured out. So next on the list, lower third. Let's go ahead and get a group going. I'm going to make a group just for this. That way I have all my stuff organized. If you want to put it all in one file, that works perfectly fine. That's great. So for this, going to make a new layer. Pretty simple. And the guides I put originally, I'm going to actually use for this. I'm not going to really constrain too much on the height here. I'm just kind of going to get what I feel like would work on that. So just doing a custom one right now. I'm going to use that same black I had earlier. Keeping the colors consistent good. Make sure it's the same. 0005 or whatever that is. It is a bit dark, but it'll work. And then say you want to do like a number or something down here. What I am going to do is I'm now going to put a guide on top of that rectangle. And that looks about on par. So I'm going to go ahead and do a rectangle select or square selection. Start at the top and then hit shift until it hits that other guide. It's not going to snap to it, so kind of just got to eyeball it. I'm make a new layer here. I'm going to make that white for the time being. And say you want to put like a name. Actually, that looks pretty buns. Yeah, no, that's not good. That's not going to look good at all. Let's see, what would we do? Well, let's go ahead and do the next bit. That way I don't lose my mind trying to figure that out. And I'm going to do a little bit of an area above here. I'm going to do a lighter black, maybe a bit of a gray. We'll do this right here just for an example. Boom, you got a gray. And this is just for full length ticker. If you wanted to keep in mind like the pylon, just cut it out, add like a layer mask. It's pretty simple. Like, find a good aligning here. It doesn't have to be perfect if you don't want it to be, but if you want to kind of keep it level, trying to find a measurement or whatever that you feel like would be the best align, you can just hit add layer mask. If you don't want to delete the whole thing, just kind of use an example. Now for here, I'm going to go ahead and go full black because when you're doing layer masks, that's the way to delete stuff without deleting it. And there you go. That is called non-destructive editing. So for the sakes of it not looking weird, I'm going to do this for right now. If you want to do it long ways, you could, but you may have to do like a bigger rectangle for the number to fit. And that all depends on how you size your number. I did a tutorial on number cards a while back, which is still relevant today. So if you want to check that out and getting number cards made, most of them be the 1:1 scale ratio, which is why if you do the square and then just hold shift, not control, but shift, it'll fit pretty good. Now, for some reason, this looks a little goofy, but oh well. I think I just, I don't know. Maybe that's just my eyes messing with me. But yeah. So just put a white box there for now on that new layer. Hopefully, okay. Yeah, this is its own thing. So now, let's just find a number, for example, and put that in. All right. So here's this number I made recently for a Greg Biffle tribute I did. And you can kind of see it's kind of out here. That's because that layer mask I put in. So I'm going to scale this down here. Find the size. So this is where we find the size. And if you want to do like a bunch of numbers, the trick is to find that right size and then just hit it the same every time. Why is that extending bigger than the... I think I know what I did. I hit control after I already scaled it. Well, we'll just use this for the time being as the placeholder. Guides, again, it doesn't snap, just kind of gotta find the right thing on that. Scale, move it over like literally 1 pixel. Go and delete that since we're basically not going to be able to use it. Then you can just hit like alpha to selection on this, and then maybe, I mean, you can just put stuff on top of it really if you wanted, or turn off, turn on. But usually I like put a guide like right next to it. That way you can just scale it to, like every time you put a number in, just scale it to whatever fits best. So this is 174 by 174. That'll fit every time. So now, if you want to put like text on the side, I'm just gonna use like sans serif for now. White's best bet. Just put in like full caps, something like that, and then we'll just, you know, and you can just make this editable every time you go in. It doesn't have to be. You can kind of. I usually just eyeball it. This isn't like a huge, you know, big thing. Probably don't want to put your text up right next to the number. You're gonna look a little jank. And then you can put like, you know, whatever, like lower third stuff down here in text. Up to you how you want to do that. Pretty simple stuff. And again, if you want to do like the full length without the side ticker for like in consideration of the ticker on the top, that's fine. Or heck, if you want to do both, you could just crop the content on this and then move it around in OBS. But actually, you know, I am going to do that because doing a lot of these would really take up a lot of space because of the file size. So I'm going to layer cropped content on the ticker, or not the ticker, but the that. So that's gonna help us say size sake. And let's go ahead and I'm not gonna export that right now, just for the sake of file size. I'm gonna hit Control D, that duplicates the document, and I'm just gonna keep that, delete everything else, and that way it's just the lower third image crop to content, and then use that as example. And unfortunately, you can't really text in OBS. You just kind of have to, you can like export text, like just shoot, like just literally make a whole layer that's just text or whatever, like, oh, yada yada yada, or yada yada yada. And if you really wanted to, like, make it really specific, it's where you have it formatted where you know it's not going to take up that space over there. You could like hit flatten image, like none. Granted, this is like, you don't save this obviously, but like, maybe you use a magic wand tool, maybe lower the threshold, that way it just colors that black area, and select, and then kind of just, let's see, how would I go about doing this? Honestly, I would hit select, invert, and then delete that. Actually, shoot, okay, actually, you know what? Your best bet would probably be do that, and then crop to selection, and then you could just throw it in, actually image crop to selection, and then you could just throw it in OBS, or like type in whatever is like a PNG, like I don't know, like Fortnite something, I don't know, but like that as a lower third or whatever. Now I'll just actually use this as an example, and then you can just export that. Or you could have something automated with GNL.TV, which is a bit advanced. That just takes knowing how to use it. One thing I will also mention, you can also just really easily trace these lower thirds as well. And remember what I did with the ticker originally? You just kind of do a selection in that area, get your radial gradient, just kind of move it around, play with it. That's really your best bet for getting like the stylish stuff. But if you want to do something real simple, like how they have over here with Kurt Busch ticker, someone actually already made this on Stunod, so you could literally just go in there and use those if you'd like, and you'd be set for that. So now I have Android 2003 open, and next up I'm just gonna load up the everything I need to. Actually, I have the both open. Here we go. I have everything I need, so now I'm going to show you how to set up an OBS. Alright, so I'm going to be generous and show you all my gnarl setup, and also ignore the mirroring screen that is infinite looping, but just to save some time, that way this video is not like an hour long, and we're already approaching the half-hour mark, unfortunately. But basically, just to give you an idea, so this is how I have the gnarl ticker set up. Let me go ahead and put it forward to erase, that way I can kind of get an idea how it works. So it's been set forward to erase. You can kind of see there now. That's how I have the whole ticker set up. So for starters, I have a checkered flag I made, custom made. It is just a image I put together and put a flag on it, put checkered, exported as a PNG, and made sure it was kind of the same width and width and height and width. Goodness, can't speak. My apologies. As the other things, and it just kind of comes down to, like, if you need, you can. Here, I'll show you. You can right click on the side of your screen. Granted, it's going to show the mirror because I'm recording, but you can right click here, and there should be an option to save preview screenshot, and you can just trace off that to get an idea of where all your stuff is at, to know where to put it. And let's just say, for example, we want to add in our lower third, so I'm just hit image, new. We'll make example. Okay, browse where I put that. It is. This is. I put all my stuff in like a folder, and I have it all organized. Like, see here, I have a happy hour image, qualify, practice, lap, leader. I make all these texts, that way when I'm putting it on the ticker, I can just put it in a folder and then choose what to display at what time. And a lot of this stuff I change out via during the race using OBS Blade. You can download that on, I believe, just the Apple store. I don't believe it's on Android, but if you want, it's there. So you can move this around. So say if you wanted to do just like this or kind of like that, that's fine. You kind of want to try to line it up. So what you could do is just move it over here. Use your down arrow a couple times. Looks pretty lined up to me. Then hit shift right arrow, and you can move it to the left. That way, if you feel a bit more comfortable, you can kind of see the distance between both sides on that. Or if you want to center it, you could as well. Just make sure that where it says on the pixels on the left and side, on left and right, are pretty close, which they don't look close. Well, there's actually there's a center. You just, yeah, that centers it right there, and you can just like get rid of this and do a scroll ticker, which actually I think I still have in here, just in its example. But yeah, you could use like the old CCRS scroll ticker, have GNL running that, whichever works for you. So that looks fine and dandy. I won't throw that other ticker in here just because this is mainly for example, but that's how you put in the lower third. So I've removed that, and I'm going to go ahead and show you all some of this other stuff. So I have actually four different things for the ticker itself. So there's, this is 11th through 20th, 21st through 30th, and 30th through 32nd. And then the top I just have as pylon ticker. Once this race commences that we have going here, which hopefully gently accelerate a little bit, and boom, they are green. So our ticker should be working here on OBS here in a second. So I have browser 11, and you can see the lap. Now for that, where it says green, I put a hole in the ticker itself, and you see there's the ticker. And I also I scaled these down and used some scripts to auto switch these as well. So I guess I'll kind of show you that. But basically I would put Um, like say, take for instance, Pylon Ticker. Um, it is just the top 10, and then you can kind of see where like 11th through 20th is just 11th through 20th, and then 21st, 20, 30th is just 10 by 10 by 10. However you have it scaled, it just depends on how you have it. Now, right now it's a mix of gnarled numbers and generic because sometimes OBS loads weird, and all the numbers I have in my folder, custom numbers that were made for that. Um, I there isn't a tutorial for the um, Matthew Wilhite advanced GNL.TV. That is what I'm currently using at the moment. I'll link his stuff in the description. But basically, just shoot, I'm actually gonna have to make a different tutorial. That I would recommend the Charlie Fibrosis one, but it is actually not that accurate. So I might just make a separate tutorial for that if y'all like, for using the advanced GNL ticker that Wilhite made. Kind of similar to the Stinger ticker that was never released, so some people might like that. Um, but yeah, uh, it's all scaled. So like, say when uh, I got my own, I made. It's just getting free with it, and you know, using tracing, figuring out what works, what doesn't. Like for this, I use a very slight gradient down from the white, and I used a whole cover here, did some bars on the sides. You can kind of see it with the yellow. I think you can really see it with the green here. Well, you can see that slight little gradient that goes down. Uh, right behind the text, I have that behind it. And um, I have like a caution cooldown thing. I had a, here, I'll show you how I did this. So I added a um, go transition, swipe, slide. That works fine. That's what I did there. And I had a point of return, same deal. Again, just traced it, figured out the size I needed to do, moved it over, added some space, added some Cameron Jamison, and like say it's a different session. Like I said, I was showing you those texts I made. Just turn it off. It says like practice, happy hour, qualify, you name it. Got the stuffs, and then I got laps. That again, this uses a different format. I'd have to make a separate tutorial for, but just scale it in, move it over here. Maybe move it if the laps are like 100 or more or so. That might uh, affect how much space is being used there. Track name, same deal. Just have to reload that, and you can just scale it, move it around. And I usually do the logo in Gimp because moving it around in OBS is not fun at all. So I also have one for CCRS that uses the same ticker, and it's just reskinned with a different text on the top. And again, I was talking about that hole in the side. That changes the flag condition. You might see this on the cheese food broadcast, but if I want to just, I have a little box behind it. Like I'll show you here. And that's a box. That's a full green box that I have right behind it. And I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. But I just have that for green. Turn that off. I can go yellow. That also has a fade in as well. It kind of goes in. And usually the way I do it is I turn this on, turn it off, turn on the yellow. I guess the fade doesn't really matter at that point, but that's how it is. I have one for white. And checkered, I just, like I said, I showed you originally, was that. That's usually how I got going for that. And that is mostly how the tickers work in OBS. Again, uh, I did use a script, so um, these I might they're technically not public, but I might end up like sharing these or something. But yeah, I have one just for like if there's a 30 car race, we'll do like switch it between 11 and 20 every 15 seconds, and then one if there's like a 32 car race, which make for there's 2 spots, or maybe for 40. I don't know if there's a one that goes up to like 42, but um, there's different options here for these, and you can just turn on enable auto switch, and it turns it on. Just turn it off, turn it off. Pretty simple stuff. But I'm gonna keep it kind of short here. Just that way it's not too crazy long, but the big name of the game is be creative and kind of just be open to tracing stuff. Tracing is going to be even like even if you want to just do original stuff, which is perfect. I highly recommend it. Making original tickers, original lower thirds, original scaling, all that. But when it comes to like doing graphics, like say, like I said, the caution cooldown, point of return, you kind of want to get that size close if you want to keep it right. Up to you at the end of the day, but that's how I do it. One last thing I do want to show you guys is I do need to make another thing. It's gonna be like an onboard camera graphic, by Jarrett and Jarrett. So I already have my image here. It's gonna kind of be like an example. So it's just kind of like a dash cam, well, onboard cam, not dash cam. I don't know why I was saying that. But we're gonna be using that as kind of our example. I'm gonna go ahead and get the logo for like the, presented by Jarrett and Jarrett Law Firm. Right, and I'm gonna go ahead and uh, put in my guides um, that I had put in earlier, or kind of showed you guys how to do that. So we're gonna do vertical. We'll do 95%. Just right over there. And then we're here. I'm just going to put it on this bottom corner. So I'm only going to do the guides for now for like something like this. So new guide by percent, horizontal, 95%. So that's all over there. I do feel like that kind of could be more to the left. So I'm going to use my move tool and then change my toggle shift or my tool toggle to pick a layer guide. You can also hit shift and it lets you select the guide. So I'm going to select this guide over here. Kind of gonna eyeball it. I don't feel like it needs to be too perfect until kind of that bottom area looks like a square, I guess. This little area right here looks like a square. So, that's fine by me. So I'm gonna go back to my move selection layer guides. Get my rectangle tool out. Kind of see what I'd want to do for like a size. This looks good. And then back to my color, which I believe is 0005, which I did earlier. And we're going to go ahead and do select, get a round rectangle on this. Probably do 15. I think that would be a good one. Looks good to me right there. Hit new layer. And then drag drop that in. Boom, we got ourselves a color. And hit select none. And now I'm going to kind of make a guide of this. So here's a little trick I have. So I use my scale tool. Make sure it's on that. Actually, no, I need to crop this content layer, crop layer to content. Now I use my scale tool. And I have a, in my options here under tool options, I have guides. There's a guides to drop down here. I have center lines, so you can turn that to see center lines. I'm just going to drag and drop a guide right there, and I can just center anything I want in this box. So first, I'm going to get some text. I actually use I use a specific font for most Cheese Free broadcasts, kind of keep it consistent. And I'm just going to do stainless black. That's usually the font I use. For some of that stuff, you might see with the number fonts and all that. And I'm just going to put in on board. Actually, just put on board, hit Control A, selects all the text, change that color in the box, move it to white. Change this to white. Now, it should center. Now, I don't trust, like when you're doing it on a horizontal guide, I wouldn't trust doing center on that because there's a bit of an area like down here that kind of doesn't show or like doesn't fully show. So I wouldn't exactly trust that, like maybe like layer cropped content or like something like that to where it's not weird like that, but it works. So now put in the Jarrett and Jarrett logo and scale that down. Fits in right here, and I have this little area up here, and I'm going to show you here in a second why I have that. Old Jarrett made himself a little icon of sort, so go ahead and put that in here and do this, put it behind a little bit, and since it's behind the original text should just, right behind it. Put them right there. Bada bing, bada boom. You got yourself Jarrett and Jarrett onboard. So this is what it looked like on the broadcast when you're on onboard camera doing that. And again, you can just put that into OBS same way. I'm actually going to probably crop the content on this and so image crop to content. That way it is just straight up. So we're going to do that. And I think that'll be good. Again, I might do the tutorial on how to use the GNL.TV that Matthew Wilhite made. I will probably have to ask for permission on that. We'll have to see where that goes. Again, like I said, didn't really go too far into depth on this and want to make it too long. Kind of just give you that broad, like, perspective on how to get a little bit more creative with your stuff. It doesn't always have to be tracing. Like this, I just did it on a whim. I just used a color, and if you have a consistent color, like copy down that color palette, make it look nice. Up to you. But yeah, I think that's all we're gonna do here, and catch you next time.